Hello and welcome to Current News. My name is Neel. In this special segment, we will discuss news which is important from the perspective of your exam. Bulletin of the last whole week which might echo in the question paper in your examination hall. Let's begin with the headlines. Government inching towards 4-tier health infrastructure. Centre planning to introduce National Public Health Bill in Parliament's monsoon session. 125-year-old Epidemic Diseases Act to be abolished. The central government's proposal in the parliament regarding spending more than the budget. The government plans to spend more than 1 lakh crore rupees under various schemes. The government seeks approval for additional expenditure for the third time in the current budget year. 14th India-Japan Annual Summit concludes. Japan announces to invest 5 trillion yen in India over next 5 years. Agreement on development works in India's northeastern region. India issues new Arctic policy, strengthening India's presence in the Arctic region to be emphasized, research as well as trade to be emphasized. And COP4 meeting on Minamata Convention concludes in Bali, Indonesia. Prevention of illegal mercury trade emphasized, countries around the world adopting Bali Declaration. Now let's begin with news of the week. The Government of India is introducing a major program in public health sector. The National Public Health Bill is expected to be introduced in the monsoon session of the Parliament 2022. Officially, the blueprint of the bill is almost ready. According to the draft bill, the government will implement a new administrative system for the public health sector. The bill proposes a 4-tier health administration architecture with national, state, district and block level public health authorities having well-defined powers. These powers and functions will help the authorities deal with public health emergencies. The National Public Health Authority is proposed to be headed by the Union Health Ministry. Through the proposed bill, the government seeks to replace the 125-year-old Epidemic Diseases Act 1897. Many states in India had invoked the provisions of this act as a major tool in fight against COVID-19 pandemic. Implementation of the act in India has exposed its major limitations. The proposed law also provides for the creation of public health cadre at national and state levels. It will also cover public health emergencies caused by bioterrorism, natural disasters, chemical and nuclear attacks or accidents. The draft lays down several situations in which public health emergency can be declared. The draft bill also defines various measures such as isolation, quarantine and lockdown. The government has recently sought Parliament's nod for net additional spending for the current fiscal year. A total demand of 1.0 lakh crore rupees has been raised in this proposal. It is estimated that out of the total amount, about 15,000 crore rupees will be spent on fertilizer subsidy. Also, the government desires to invest in the public sector general insurance companies like National Insurance Company Limited for improving them. It is to be noted that this is the third batch of supplementary demands being tabled in the Parliament for the current fiscal year. It must be mentioned that the government is required to take Parliament's approval every year to meet its expenses. However, when grants authorized by Parliament fall short of the required expenditure, an estimate is presented before the Parliament called as supplementary grants. These grants are passed by the Parliament. Similarly, additional grant is granted when a need has arisen during the current financial year for additional expenditure. This grant is presented for some new service not contemplated in the budget for that year. Also, excess grant is granted when money has been spent on any service during a financial year in excess of the amount granted for that service. It is voted by the Lok Sabha after the financial year. The Supreme Court has given its verdict on issue of disclosing the identity of children who have been victims of sexual abuse. The conflicting opinions of the jury which delivered this verdict have sparked a legal debate. A judge who was part of the bench is in favor of disclosure of the victim's identity. The judge is of the view that revealing the identity will aid in protecting the child victim. The second judge is of the view that child victim's identity should not be disclosed as it is in fundamental breach of the right of the child to dignity. In other words, the debate on whether violation of Section 2 of POCSO Act is a cognizable offence or not. The opinions of the jury are totally conflicting in this regard. Cognizable offences include those offences in which the police can arrest the accused without any warrant. On the contrary, A warrant is required in case of non-cognizable offences. Also, according to Section 155, Subclause 2 of the CRPC, the police is required to take magistrate's approval for investigating cases related to non-cognizable offences. Section 23 of the POCSO Act makes the disclosure of identity of children who have been victims of sexual abuse a punishable offence. As per this section, it is an offence to disclose the name, address, photograph, school or family information of a child through reports in any media. In case of violation of this provision, this law provides for punishment ranging from 6 months to 1 year. An initiative to foster a better understanding of the Constitution of India among the Santals has come to the fore. An assistant professor in Santali language, Shripati Tudu, has translated the Constitution of India in the Old Chiki script of Santali language. This is the first time that the Santals will get to read and understand India's constitution in their own script. Through this translation, the constitution will be more accessible to a wider group. The Santal community will also understand what their rights are, the provisions, and what is written inside. The Santal community is the third largest tribe in India, concentrated in 7 states in large numbers, including in West Bengal, Odisha, and Jharkhand. This community is also spread across Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Nepal. Santali is the local language of Santals. Initially, Santali was not included in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution. However, Bodo, Dogri, Maithili, and Santali were added through 92nd Constitutional Amendment Act 2003, published in the Gazette of India in 2004. Actually, there is no provision in the Indian Constitution for translating constitutions in the vernaculars. However, at present the Indian Constitution is available in Hindi and English as well as in other languages. The Constitution only mentions the translation of Indian Constitution to Hindi. Article 394A was added to the Constitution through 58th Amendment Act. According to this article, the President shall cause to be published under his authority the translation of Indian Constitution in the Hindi language. The translation shall be in conformity with the language, style and terminology adopted in the authoritative texts of central acts. Also, the translation in the Hindi language shall carry every amendment of the Indian Constitution as made in the English language. Moreover, the translation of Indian Constitution in Hindi language shall be construed to have the same meaning as the original one. If any difficulty arises in construing any part of such translation, the President shall cause the same to be revised suitably. The Prime Minister of Japan, Mr. Kishida Fumio, recently made an official visit to India for attending the 14th India-Japan Annual Summit. This summit was organized at a time when two countries were celebrating the 70th anniversary of their bilateral diplomatic ties. During the meeting, they reviewed the developments since the last annual summit. In addition, PM Modi was also invited to the Quad Summit meeting to be held in Tokyo. Japan announced to invest 5 trillion yen for public and private projects in India over the next 5 years. This investment will be made through International Cooperation Agency in areas related to connectivity between states, water supply, sewerage, horticulture, healthcare, and biodiversity conservation. India has achieved the 3.5 trillion yen investment target that was announced by Japan in 2014. A memorandum of understanding has also been signed with Japan for Joksao technology for decentralized wastewater treatment. This technology will be used in areas where there is no sewage infrastructure. The India-Japan Industrial Competitiveness Partnership was established in 2021 for promoting industrial cooperation. Now, a roadmap will be prepared for various sectors including MSME, manufacturing and supply chain under this partnership. Apart from this, both the countries also signed a $75 billion bilateral currency swap agreement. The India-Japan Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement was amended for promoting trade in surimi fish. An Indo-Japanese initiative has been undertaken for sustainable development of India's northeastern region. It includes strengthening the bamboo value chain, cooperation in healthcare, forest resource management, connectivity, and tourism in India's northeastern region. An extensive discussion was held on India-Japan Digital Partnership for promoting the digital economy. It will provide opportunities to the Indian IT professionals to work in Japan and Japanese companies. The India-Japan Clean Energy Partnership was approved for cooperation towards sustainable economic development in areas associated with clean energy and carbon recycling. The central government has released India's Arctic policy with the aim of enhancing India's role in the Arctic region. The policy is titled as India and the Arctic, Building a Partnership for Sustainable Development. India aspires to have a permanent presence in the Arctic region through this policy. India presently has a single research center, Himadri, in the Arctic. To foster research in this area, India is in process of procuring a research vessel that can navigate the region. It is to be noted that Arctic weather influences the Indian monsoon. Hence, it has been of interest to Indian researchers. Apart from research, India will also explore trade opportunities in the region. India currently is an observer nation in the Arctic Council, an organization that works for the Arctic region. This organization has 8 member states, namely Canada, Denmark, Finland, Norway, Iceland, Russia, Sweden, and United States. Besides India, 11 other nations have been approved as observers to the Arctic Council. Let us discuss relevant points mentioned in the policy. This policy aims at strengthening India's capabilities in the Arctic in terms of climate research, environmental protection, and maritime cooperation. Also, there will be focus upon interministerial coordination in pursuit of India's interest in the Arctic. The policy aims to enhance the understanding of the impact of changes in the Arctic on India's climate. It also seeks to study the linkages between polar regions and the Himalayas. Striving towards clean energy, the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has recently launched a hydrogen-based advanced fuel cell electric vehicle, Toyota Mirai. It is a first-of-its-kind pilot project in India based on green hydrogen. The objective of this project is to develop and promote green hydrogen-based ecosystem in India. It also aims at spreading awareness among people regarding the benefits of green hydrogen. It is to be noted that the Government of India has announced a national hydrogen energy mission in 2021. It was aimed at preparing a roadmap for utilizing hydrogen as an alternative source of energy. Hydrogen is a clean fuel. When it is consumed in a fuel cell, it produces only water and water vapor as byproducts. Hydrogen can be produced from a variety of energy resources such as natural gas, nuclear energy, biomass, solar, as well as renewable energy. Green hydrogen is produced through water electrolysis powered by renewables like solar and wind. This reduces the carbon footprint. This property of reducing carbon footprint makes hydrogen a prominent option for fuel with respect to transportation and power generation. It is used as a portable source of electricity and in various other forms in vehicles and households. Brown hydrogen is produced from coal, grey hydrogen is produced from natural gas, and emissions from it are discharged in the atmosphere. Recently, a meeting to the Minamata Convention was held from 21st March to 25th March 2022 in Bali, Indonesia. This was the 4th meeting of the Conference of Parties to the Minamata Convention on Mercury. The Government of Indonesia and United Nations have sought major support for Bali Declaration to curtail the illegal trade of mercury. There has been a consensus to adopt a non-binding declaration that will enhance international cooperation combating illegal trade in mercury. The non-binding declaration calls upon parties to develop practical tools for monitoring and managing trade in mercury. It also focuses upon exchanging experiences and practices relating to curbing the illegal trade in mercury. Minamata Convention was agreed upon in an intergovernmental committee on mercury held in Geneva in 2013. The convention draws its name from a Japanese city and it entered into force in 2017. This convention is a global treaty to protect the environment from the adverse effects of mercury. 137 countries are parties to this convention, including India. The convention also focuses on controlling the supply and trade of mercury, reducing its use, emissions, and release of mercury. Indonesia is one of the world's most affected countries due to illegal trade in mercury, especially in the artisanal and gold mining. Hence, Indonesia is emphasizing on a Bali Declaration to prevent such illegal trade of mercury. Negative impacts of mercury use on both humans and the environment have been clearly evident. If mercury emissions get into human body, they adversely affect the nervous system, digestive system, lungs, and kidneys. The central government has recently released the draft National Tourism Policy. The draft has been sent to industry partners, state governments, and other allied ministries for feedback. The draft mainly focuses upon green and digital tourism. To promote investment in the tourism sector, the document mentions granting of industry status to the sector, along with formally granting infrastructure status to hotels. As per the document, 5 key areas would be given significant focus in next 10 years. These include green tourism, digital tourism, destination management, and skilling the hospitality sector. It also focuses upon supporting the tourism-related micro, small and medium enterprises. The tourism industry has suffered heavy losses due to COVID-19 pandemic. This sector contributes about 6% to India's gross domestic product. Also, it accounts for about 9% of the total employment in the country. Against this backdrop, various provisions have been made in the draft for reviving the tourism sector. Tourism is one of the important economic activities of the country. In India, the Union List and State List all have elements related to tourism. Though tourism is not specifically referred to anywhere, one can find terms like pilgrimage in the lists. The High Court of Karnataka recently pronounced its verdict on the petition related to row over wearing hijab. Upholding the ban on wearing hijab, the court observed that students in educational institutions would only wear prescribed uniforms. The court rejected an argument in favor of wearing headscarves that was based on principle of reasonable accommodation. Reasonable accommodation is a principle that promotes equality and enables the grant of positive right. It also prevents discrimination based on disability, health condition, or personal belief. Its use is primarily in the disability rights sector. Through this principle, the state governments and private institutions provide additional support and facilities to the disabled persons for ensuring their effective participation. According to Article 2 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, necessary modifications should be done in order to ensure that persons with disabilities enjoy an equal basis with others. In 2016, the International Labour Organization also came out with a practical guide on promoting diversity and inclusion in workplace. Under this practical guidebook, labourers were divided into 4 categories: persons with disabilities, persons suffering from HIV and AIDS, pregnant women and women having family responsibilities, and labourers of a particular religion or ideology. The International Labour Organization stated that labourers have to face different types of obstacles at workplace. This affects their employment access. Thus, the provision of reasonable accommodation will play a pivotal role in removing these obstacles. In India, the Rights of People with Disabilities Act 2016 is the legislation that addresses the needs of persons with disabilities. The Act stresses upon equality, non-discrimination, respect for difference, and acceptance of disabilities as part of human diversity. Let us now look at 5 questions based on today's bulletin.
Questions for this series are: first question is, consider the following statements. 1. The government has powers to spend more than the amount allotted for a service, but there is no provision in the Constitution in this regard. 2. Annual financial statement related proposal is discussed only in the Lok Sabha. Which of the above statement or statements is or are correct? 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, or neither 1 nor 2? Next question is, consider the following statements. 1. As per the provisions mentioned in the Constitution, it is President's duty to get the Constitution translated in all the languages included in the 8th schedule. 2. Hindi translation of the Constitution should have the same meaning as its original text. 3. In case of ambiguity, the power of reviewing the translation lies with the Parliament. Which of the above statement or statements is or are correct? 1 only, 2 and 3 only, 2 only, or 1 and 3 only? Next question is, prominently in news, the Minamata Convention is related to a partnership between Asia-Pacific countries for the prevention of a local disease transmitted in Japan, or a protocol to comply with the WHO prescribed maximum limit of PM 2.5 concentration, or prevention of the mining of mercury, or none of the above. Next question is, consider the following statements with reference to the Arctic Council. 1. All the Asia-Pacific countries are included in the Arctic Council. 2. India is a permanent member of the Arctic Council. Which of the above statement or statements is or are correct? 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, or neither 1 nor 2? Last question is, consider the following assertion and reason. Assertion: only the Union government can pass laws related to tourism. And reason? Tourism is a union subject under the 7th schedule. Both the assertion and reason are correct, and reason is the correct explanation of the assertion. Both the assertion and reason are correct, but reason is not the correct explanation of the assertion. Or both the assertion and reason are correct, or both the assertion and reason are incorrect.
So for the time being, that's all in this bulletin. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe Drishti IAS Hindi, English and PCS YouTube channels. At the end, let us have a look at few more events of the last week in other news.
Nagaland has become India's first state to implement the National E-Vidhan project. MLAs will use electronic devices to participate in the proceedings of the House from now onwards. The initiative will play a pivotal role in promoting paperless proceedings as well as realizing the government's Digital India vision. Niti Aayog recently organized the 5th edition of Women Transforming India Awards. 75 women were facilitated for their contribution towards Sashakt or Samarth Bharat under the event. The event was celebrated as part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. As per the BOFA Global Research Report, the share of domestic banks in the total commercial credit has declined. This decline has come down from 56% in financial year 2011 to 34% in financial year 2021. COVID-19 pandemic and lack of tendency of companies to borrow loans from the banks are major factors behind the decline. Russia recently used Kinjal hypersonic missile for the first time against Ukraine. The missile is capable of traveling 5 times the speed of sound and hitting the target. It was used for destroying the underground weapons warehouse in the Ivano-Frankivsk region. Africa's Boma technique was recently used in Keoladio National Park located in Bharatpur, Rajasthan. It is being used for capturing spotted deer and transporting them to Mukundra Hills Tiger Reserve. Spotted deer are included in the least concern category of IUCN Red List. World Sparrow Day is celebrated every year on 20th March. World Sparrow Day 2022 theme was I Love Sparrow. World Sparrow Day is celebrated for promoting awareness about sparrows and conserving them. Common University entrance test will be conducted for the first time in India for admission in undergraduate programs. National Testing Agency will be responsible for conducting the test. The test will be conducted in 13 languages. 45 central universities of India will be covered under the Common University entrance test.